now we've learned how to add pages inside of WordPress, we want to look at adding posts. But before we can add a post, we need to have categories to help us organize all of our different posts. And the reason we need help with organizing our post over our pages is typically we'll only have a handful of pages. We're usually going to have a lot more posts because they can be categorized and because a lot of times they are built based upon a specific date. So right now we're in our dashboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at post, and you'll notice I have a categories section. So I'm going to just click on categories. This will always be available to you, as you'll notice, anytime you're on the post submenu. By default, you have an uncategorized category. And this is just kind of like a little default catch-all. You have to have at least one. You cannot delete this. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to choose to edit this category. And instead of uncategorized, I'm going to call this default. Now your slug is a URL-friendly version of your category name. Now what does that mean? Well, it means that typically it's going to be all lowercase. It may have numbers and hyphens in it, but it's not going to have spaces. It's not going to have special characters or any Unicode type of characters. You might go, well, why not? Well, not all browsers have the ability to see that or to link to that. And so therefore, we're going to make this as generic as possible to ensure that as many different browsers will be able to access this link. Now, it does not have to be the same name. We see here that our slug is still uncategorized and our main name is default. So I can leave it like that, or I can change it as well. And I can choose to add a parent category. Now, right now, there are no other categories, so it doesn't let me choose it. We have the option of setting a description. Now, a lot of themes don't display this, but we can actually click on a category and list all of our posts in that category. And some themes will display this. It's very theme dependent, so don't assume that it's there. I'm going to choose update, and that lets me change the uncategorized to be default. I'm going to choose to go back to my categories. And if I want to add a new category, for example, I'll add sample category. Now you notice I have uppercase letters and spaces in my name, but if I click tab, I can choose to put something else in for my slug. I can choose to ignore it, however. I'm going to click on the add new category just to show you what's going to happen. Notice on my left hand side now I have my sample category, the missing description, and the slug. Notice that WordPress went in and converted it to lowercase and put a dash where that space was. It did it for me. So you don't even have to add your own slug. I'm going to choose to add a sample child category. I'm going to choose sample category as my parent and click add new category. When I do that, you'll notice that underneath sample category is my sample child category, and it has a little dash in front of it. That dash is to indicate that it is a child of sample category. And I can have categories that are a child of a child category. Notice here when I choose my parent category, sample child category is indented. I'm going to choose that one. Notice now where a child is shown, it has 2 of those dashes. So it's very helpful for being able to create categories with subcategories, with subcategories, and on that list can go. Now, typically you're not going to have too many of these sub-child categories and sub-child categories. That's kind of rare, but it is an option for you, especially if you need to group and organize things. So you might have, depending upon what you're doing, you might have a site that's all about you have a site that's on your hobbies, and you have a couple different hobbies, And so you might put those as a child category underneath your main hobbies category. So it's really good at helping organize things. The last thing I want to show you real quickly, though, is the count column. And the count column is the very last column, and it lets us know, are there certain categories which are not being used? And that's real important, actually, for a lot of reasons. In some cases, that's because we just haven't gotten to writing any content about it. For example, we've just created categories here. We haven't actually written any content for them. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, if I've been going along, all of a sudden I say, well, wait a second, I've got 2 child categories here that don't have any content. Do I really need those? I can choose to delete them, or I can choose to add content from them. If I want to delete them, for example, child of a child, I'll say, well, maybe I want to delete this one. Well, if I hover over it, notice I have the option to delete. It's going to ask, are you sure I want to do this? I can't undo it. And say OK. And it deleted it for me. If I want to edit this sample child category, I can choose to edit here. And notice it brings this up so I can edit this information. If I choose the update, it will say it's updated even though I didn't make any actual changes. I can click to go back to my categories. So I have a lot of power and flexibility with how I set up my categories. This is something I like to spend a little bit of time with because it lets me know how am I going to organize my site. A while back, I created an online newsletter for my company. And one of the things that we did is we took all the different categories of how we normally wrote the articles in these newsletters that we emailed out, and we created categories for them here. And then we just simply plugged in the articles into those right categories. And it worked very well. A little bit of prior planning goes a long way, especially if you're going to have a large and complex website like that one actually turned out to be.